Contact protocol breach. The stars shimmered peacefully beyond the observation dome of the Halcyon Whisper, but Dr. Sharnak felt a distinct tightness coil through his chest sacs. The galaxy was old, its scars vast, and yet few wounds had names that still made even hardened warriors flinch. Earth was one of them. Shar adjusted the lens of his ocular fronds and double-checked the transmission logs. There was again, undeniable, a distress beacon broadcasting from within the Sol system. The signal was old Terran code, garbled but consistent. Some unfortunate scavenger, no doubt, poking around humanity's graveyard. "You're not seriously suggesting we go there?" Captain Cyrek hissed, her 8 limbs tightening around her chair. "That place is sealed for a reason." Shar raised his chin, frowns calmly. "The Concord requires confirmation. If the signal originates from Earth itself, protocol mandates a biological survey." "Protocol doesn't survive contact with Earth," she muttered. Shar understood her fear. Every species in the Galactic Concord had their nursery tales. Monsters in the dark, beasts under beds. For most of them, those tales had evolved into one word: humans. Creatures born of volcanic ash, ice, and war. They had tamed radiation, split atoms like toys, and then turned the stars into battlegrounds before vanishing centuries ago. Earth was the last place they had been seen. No one who visited after them returned. Still, Shar was a xenobiologist. Discovery was his oath. He stared at the blue marble, slowly growing larger on the screen, half shrouded in storm, half alight with eerie auroras. "Engage descent protocols," he said quietly. The shuttle Harkai's whisper broke through Earth's upper atmosphere with violent turbulence. The ship groaned as gravity took hold with relentless force. The heat shield screamed, and Shar clutched the padded bench as red and orange plasma filled the windows. They landed in what the ancient Earth maps call the Pacific Northwest. Dense green foliage towered around the wreck of civilization. Cities were skeletal remains swallowed by trees. Skyscrapers reduced to moss-covered bones. Nature hadn't reclaimed the land. It had consumed it. And Earth was loud. Every second, something screamed, howled, chirped, or growled. The biosphere was overflowing. Plants twisted like they had thoughts. Insects the size of palms crawled across metal wreckage. It was as if the planet had decided to evolve without restraint once the humans vanished. Lieutenant Koresh, a hulking Zarnak enforcer bred for war, snorted. "This is nothing. Overgrown dirt. The tales are exaggerated." Shar wasn't so sure. He felt the weight in the air, the unnatural silence that followed the crew's steps, as if the forest was listening. They moved toward the coordinates of the distress signal. What they found wasn't a crash site. It was a message. A prospector's ship lay shattered in a clearing, not by impact, but by force. Its metal hull shredded in precise, vertical slashes. Blood, too old to be fresh, painted the trees in arcs. The log data had been ripped from the ship, as if someone, or something, had known exactly where to erase the record. Koresh turned slowly tense. This wasn't an accident. Shar bent down, examining a deep track in the mud. 5 digits. Human-shaped. Fresh. "They survived," he whispered. "What?" He stood slowly, his voice trembling now with something between awe and terror. "The humans. They're still here." At that moment, a whisper echoed from the treeline. Not in sound, but in feeling. A predator's presence. The crew raised weapons, their forms tight, scanning the shadows. Then came a howl. Deep, ancient, echoing through the ruined canopy like a war horn. Something massive moved between the trees. The underbrush shook. Birds scattered. Silence fell. One of the security drones pinged. "Contact. Fast. 30 meters." Koresh stepped forward, roaring defiantly, and was gone, dragged into the brush by something unseen. No scream, just a wet snap. The crew opened fire, plasma bolts scorching the trees, but whatever was out there was already gone. Shar stared into the dark, and for the first time in his life, he understood what true evolutionary terror felt like. Earth wasn't dead. It was waiting. Welcome to the jungle. The jungle was alive with whispers. Not words, warnings. Every leaf that trembled under the crew's boots felt like a signal, every gust of wind like the breath of something watching. Dr. Sharnak crouched near a puddle of iridescent liquid, scanning it with his biological probe. It shimmered under the reading lens, acidic, filled with microscopic predators unlike anything in the galactic database. This entire ecosystem is hyper-adaptive, he muttered, voice tense. It's like the planet expects invaders. Lieutenant Malreese, a slender avian from the Zafari race, hissed nervously from above in the canopy. And it remembers them. They had lost Koresh in seconds. No body, no trail, just a sudden presence in the trees and the sound of wet flesh tearing. It hadn't been a beast, it had been intentional. And worse, it hadn't attacked from hunger. It attacked from calculation. They pressed deeper toward the signal's last coordinates. Around them, the ruins of human civilization lay devoured by time and violence. A concrete tower leaned at a deadly angle, its side torn by claw marks deeper than Vshar's forearm. Vines grew from shattered vehicles, and bones littered the overgrown roads, some human, some unidentifiable. A flash of movement, weapons raised. But it was only a pack of creatures the size of dogs, with translucent skin and luminous eyes. Their teeth glowed faint blue. They didn't charge. They circled, testing. "This is wrong," whispered Malreese. "Even the predators here are intelligent. Coordinated." The air grew thick, sticky. Every breath labored. Shar-S environmental systems sputtered as airborne spores clung to the filters. The trees above released yellow clouds like pollen, but the readings showed neurotoxins. Malreese began to convulse, wings twitching, pupils dilating. Shar jabbed him with a stimulant before the toxin took full effect. "Stay with me. Don't breathe the outside air." The jungle was trying to choke them. Hours passed. Their team, now 3 remaining, stumbled across a ridge and froze. Below them lay a clearing, silent, untouched by the wild. At its center, a crude camp. Human, but not the kind seen in History Holos. These weren't people of cities and machines. They were stripped down to the essence of survival. Muscular, scarred, armored in bone and scrap. One tended a fire made from what looked like shredded solar panels. Another sharpened a blade carved from what might have been a drone's wing. Shar zoomed in with his optics. The human's eyes glowed faintly. Not cybernetic, but something else. Something evolved. "They survived," he murmured. "Not just survived. Adapted." Suddenly, one turned and looked directly at their position, eyes locked to Vsharis. They hadn't made a sound. They were uphill, partially cloaked, invisible to the naked eye. And yet, the human saw them. Not with tech, with instinct. Then came the howls. Not from the camp, from the jungle. The human didn't run. He smiled. Something burst from the tree-line near the alien's perch, a blur of muscle, fur, and bone. It was like a gorilla crossed with a mantis, arms covered in bark-like plating and teeth that clicked like knives. Malreese screamed. Shar fired blindly. The beast dodged plasma and leapt. It collided with the last soldier, skewering him with a thorned limb, then vanishing back into the shadows. Malreese fell from the tree, wings snapping on the rocks below. Only Shar remained standing. He dragged Malreese to cover beneath a hollowed metal structure. The human camp below didn't react. They weren't afraid of the predator. They lived with it, controlled it even. Shar patched Malreese's wounds, hands trembling. The Zafari's breath was shallow. His eyes fluttered. "They don't fear death," he croaked. "This planet feeds on it." Shar nodded silently. He turned back to the clearing. The humans were gone. No footsteps, no signs, just vanished. He recorded his findings, voice raw. Log entry 724, A. Dr. Vsharnak. Species, Seraphine. Location, Earth. Subject, Homo sapiens remains extant. Highly evolved. Rewilded. Physically superior. Environmentally merged. Fearless. Possibly enhanced by Earth's hostile biosphere. Hostile fauna and flora appear to operate in symbiosis with human presence. Galaxy-level quarantine justified. Recommend planetary perimeter be expanded to 5 light years minimum. A pause. Do not land here. Do not ever come back. A sound behind him. Not a roar. Not a growl. A whisper. In Galactic Common. You're not from here. Shar froze. He turned slowly. Standing behind him, inches away, was a human woman, tall, dust-covered, eyes bright with primal intelligence. Her teeth were filed. Her armor was made of fused machine and beast. You should leave, she said, before the forest decides you don't get to. Then she was gone, vanished into the green. Shar didn't hesitate. He grabbed Malrice's semi-conscious form and began the long climb back to the shuttle. And behind them, the jungle laughed. The apex paradox. Dr. Sharnak watched the jungle shift and breathe like a living organism. Trees moved in unnatural rhythms. Leaves folded when they passed beneath them. The longer he stayed, the more Earth felt less like a planet and more like a mind. Watching, calculating, remembering. He sat beside Lieutenant Malrice's weakened form, concealed under a bent solar array, half buried in vines. Malrice was pale, feverish, his feathers soaked in sweat. The neurotoxins were slowing, but they had damaged his equilibrium. He wouldn't survive another encounter. They had to leave, but their shuttle was a 3-hour hike north, through a jungle that had already devoured 2 of their crew. And worse, the humans knew they were here. Shar clutched his recorder, whispering his thoughts. Entry 725. Earth is not merely a Class X death world. It is conscious in its hostility. The environment mutates with disturbing responsiveness. Predator and prey seem aware of foreign biology. And at the center of this, humans. He stopped, looked down at the broken edge of the human-made blade they'd recovered from the clearing. It wasn't a relic. It was warm when they found it. Recently used. Embedded in the skull of a creature even the jungle seemed to fear. Shar reviewed old Concord data. Photos of ancient humans, tall, upright, tool-using, technologically advanced. But these weren't the same. The humans they encountered here were faster, stronger. One had outrun a drone. Another had stared straight through active cloaking. They hadn't gone extinct. They had evolved. Malrice stirred weakly. Why didn't they leave Earth like the others? He rasped. Shar looked into the canopy above, his voice quiet. Because they never needed to. He remembered the old stories, told by Seraphine elders when he was still a spawnling, about how humans had endured plagues that wiped out other species entirely, about wars that should have turned their planet to ash, about madness, famine, radiation, and how they thrived anyway. Their strength wasn't in technology. It was in suffering, in adaptation. They didn't conquer Earth. Earth forged them. They moved again at dusk, dragging Malrice on a makeshift sled. Drones hovered ahead, scanning paths. One exploded moments later, taken down mid-air by a vine that reacted to motion like a whip. Shar paused in a ravine. He heard the click of bone against stone. Not an animal. A human boy, maybe 14, stood there. Skin marked in ritual ash, muscles wiry and coiled like rope. He watched Shar with curiosity, no fear. In his hand, he held a crude spear tipped with salvaged metal. A dozen meters behind him stood a creature, 6-legged, plated in bark, with a mouth like a meat grinder. It didn't move. It obeyed. Shar didn't raise his weapon. He simply stared, heart-pounding. The boy pointed toward the north, then vanished into the brush. A warning, or mercy. Either way, they changed direction. As night fell, Shar and Malrice stumbled upon the remains of an old bunker. Human technology, pre-extinction. Half buried, sealed by roots. Inside, they found fragments of Earth's final transmissions. Shar activated the playback. They left us behind. Cowards. Politicians. The rest ran to Mars, to Europa. We stayed. We adapted. The storms took the weak. The beasts took the slow. But we learned. A static crackle. Then, we don't need ships. This planet is ours. We don't run from monsters. We become the monsters. The log ended. Shar slumped back, breath catching. The apex paradox. In every known world, apex predators eventually stagnated. Intelligence rose, nature calmed, violence declined. That was the cycle. But humans broke it. They didn't just survive danger. They absorbed it. Pain made them stronger. Radiation taught them resistance. Isolation bred invention. And war refined them. Earth had tried to kill them 1,000 ways. It failed every time. They reached the ridge above the shuttle just as dawn rose, casting gold fire over the jungle canopy. Their ship stood intact, though half covered in vines that hadn't been there before. Shar helped Maurice limp forward. As they approached, something moved on the path. A woman stood there, the same one from the clearing. Tall, scarred, wearing armor made of fused steel and bone. A plasma blade hung from her hip, Concord tech, centuries old. Her eyes burned with something ancient and primal. "You're not the first to come," she said quietly. "But maybe you'll be the last smart enough to leave." Shar didn't speak. He couldn't. She turned her back to them, vanishing once more into the jungle. Not a threat, not a warning, a judgment. Later, as the Harkai's whisper rose into orbit, Shar made his final log. To the Concord Council, Earth remains under absolute quarantine. Do not investigate. Do not interfere. Do not provoke. He paused. The humans are still here. They have become something beyond even our understanding. They do not need allies. They do not need technology. They are the apex of adaptation. The final answer to evolution's question. His final words. Earth didn't create monsters. It created survivors so ruthless, the galaxy has no name for them. Never again. The Harkai's whisper drifted in low orbit above Earth, its hull scorched and its systems gasping. Inside, Dr. Sharnak sat motionless, eyes fixed on the planet below, a blue-green jewel bathed in clouds and secrets. From here, it looked peaceful. From here, it lied. Behind him, Lieutenant Maurice lay in a stasis pod, barely alive but stable. He would survive at a cost. His mind would never forget what Earth had shown them. None of them would. Shar's hands trembled as he compiled his final report to the Galactic Concord. His voice shook not from fatigue, but from something far deeper, reverence laced with dread. This is Dr. Sharnak, Seraphine Science Corps. Expedition status, catastrophic failure. Crew, for lost, one critically wounded, one surviving. A pause. He looked down at the scratches on his arm. He hadn't even noticed them until now. Subject Earth. Classification, non-negotiable Deathworld. Apex class Infinity. He stood and walked toward the forward viewport, watching his storm systems swirled across continents. The planet was still evolving, its biosphere shifting and adjusting like a living algorithm. But what truly haunted him wasn't the beasts or the poison air. It was the humans. He had seen them, not as monsters, not as victims of their world, but as its masters. No other species Shar had encountered had such a brutal harmony with their planet. The humans were forged by fire, honed by extinction, and strengthened through agony. And in all of it, they had smiled. Not because they didn't feel fear, but because they had learned to use it. He whispered aloud. They didn't escape Earth because Earth never beat them. It completed them. The stars shifted in the background as the ship activated its warp jump sequence. Just before the final coordinates locked in, the ship's proximity alarm chimed once. Something was tracking them. Shar stared in disbelief. A satellite, ancient and rust-covered, was moving. Not by orbital drift. It had activated. A targeting system flashed red as it locked onto their ship. That's Concord-era tech. How? He began, but the answer was clear. The humans had repurposed the wreckage left by their ancestors. They hadn't built new defenses. They'd turned every remnant of war into a weapon. Just before the satellite could fire, the Harkai's whisper vanished into fold space. Safe for now. 3 days later, Shar stood before the Concord High Council on the station Argent Horizon. His voice echoed through the crystalline chambers, transmitted live across 500 worlds. He didn't flinch, didn't soften the truth. I submit a proposal for absolute quarantine. Earth must be classified as Black Zone Alpha. No ship may approach within 2 light years. No drone, probe, or beacon may be deployed. Violators should be executed under Clause 9, Biological Catastrophe Prevention. A silence settled after his final words. The council chamber, usually bustling with debate, was deathly still. Even the warlike Zarnak representatives, species who laughed in battle, sat in grim silence. Then Counselor Thrin of the Alavari broke it. You believe they're still dangerous, even now? Shar nodded. More than ever. Not because they want war, but because they are war. Their biology is fused with hardship. Their psychology demands adaptation. They are not like us. Pain didn't weaken them. It refined them. Counselor Veritas of the cold-blooded Taluan whispered, and if they find a way off that world? Shar met his gaze. Then pray they remember mercy. The motion passed unanimously. Earth's new designation spread instantly across the galactic net. All navigation routes recharted. The red-marked no-fly zone expanded. Stories spread like wildfire, of creatures that hunted drones, of forests that fought back, of humans who smiled into death. Ships that once drifted near Sol turned away without orders. Explorers deleted the coordinates. Historians locked away the records. And across the galaxy, children whispered a new name for Earth. The wound that thinks. Back on Earth, beneath the canopy of a ruined satellite dish, a human boy sat beside a creature the size of a tank. Half reptile, half machine, its body covered in battle scars. He fed it scraps of metal and hummed softly. His mother, tall, armored in bone and steel, watched the stars. They left again, she said, squinting. Took longer this time. The boy glanced up. Will they come back? She smiled. Not kindly. Maybe, but we'll be ready. She turned, walking back into the forest that now pulsed with life and madness. Behind her, the jungle closed like a gate. Earth was silent once more, waiting.